Good morning, everyone. Boker Tov. In this week's Torah portion, we begin reading about the 10 plagues. And when it comes to the very first plague, God tells Moses, say to your brother Aaron, to take his staff and stretch it out over the Nile, and the waters of the Nile will turn to blood. And the Rashi asked the question, why is it that Aaron was the one told to turn the waters of the Nile into blood? Why not Moses himself? And Rashi answers fascinatingly from our rabbis that being that Moses was saved through the waters of the Nile, when his mother put him in a basket to hide him from the Egyptian authorities, he had a permanent debt of gratitude to the waters of the Nile. And therefore it was inappropriate, not befitting, that he should strike the waters of the Nile and turn it into blood, because the waters of the Nile saved his life. And there are some fascinating lessons we can learn from this. The first thing is sometimes we thank people for something they've done for us and they say, there's no need to thank me. And the answer is yes, I do need to thank you, because while you may not need the gratitude, I need to express it. And therefore, even though the waters of the Nile are unaware of Moses' gratitude, Moses as a grateful person has to show that gratitude even to an inanimate object like the Nile. The second lesson we can learn from this is sometimes we benefit from people indirectly. And the question is, do I have to be grateful to someone who didn't do anything special, didn't extend themselves to help me? It was just a natural byproduct and a result of them that I benefited. And the answer is yes. The waters didn't change their nature to help Moses. They were just being water. Water has buoyancy and things float on it. Why should I be grateful to the water? But the answer is, but I did benefit from your existence, and therefore I am grateful to you. And finally, the idea of being grateful to an inanimate object. You see, inanimate objects have the value of its relationship to the person to whom it was associated. You may have a watch or a necklace from a parent or a grandparent that is very precious to you. Why? Not because of its intrinsic value, but because of who it was associated with. A desk of a famous writer or a president is very valuable because it's not just a piece of wood. It's a piece of wood that served this famous person. And therefore the waters of the Nile were transformed into something very special and sacred, because those waters were no longer just ordinary water, but water that saved the life of Moses. And therefore Moses treated it with the respect that it deserved by not being the one to turn it into blood. There's a rabbi who passed away not long ago. His name was Rabbi Wallerstein. And a story that's told about him is that he was a Rebbe in 8th grade in a yeshiva, a teacher. And he had this one student who came from a difficult home. His father had passed away, and he was very close to this student. He really cared for him, showed him extra love, because he knew that he was coming from a difficult set of circumstances. And then after he went on to high school, he went out of school, he heard that this student went completely off the path, and he became a member of the Hell's Angels gang. Well, years later, he went to a wedding of a student of his. And who showed up at the wedding? A former classmate. This boy, Howie, who was a Hell's Angel gang member, shows up at the wedding. And sure enough, his Harley is parked outside, and this former student of his is at the wedding with his leather jacket and clothing and chains and tattoos all over his body, right up his neck, on the side of his face, everywhere. Goes over to him, he says, good to see you, Howie, haven't seen you in years, how are you? Give each other a hug, and then Howie says, Rabbi, I want to talk to you. A lot of music here, can't hear it well, come outside. He takes him out, standing next to his Harley, with his leather and his chains and his tattoos, and he says, Rabbi, you must be very disappointed in me. And the rabbi said, no, I don't judge, as long as you're happy and everything's well, I'm just happy to see you. He said, but I want to tell you something that I think is going to make you happy. He says, what? He takes off his leather jacket and he rolls up his right arm. And he shows him all his tattoos right up his arm, all sorts of tattoos with lewd women, and even tattoos on his fingertips with letters, and the back of his hand, the front of his hand, right all the way up to his neck. And then he says, but let me show you my other hand. And he rolls up his left arm sleeve, and there's not one tattoo on the arm. It's all clean. And he said, Rabbi, do you remember when we were in 8th grade? My father had passed away. I didn't have anyone to buy me tefillin for my bar mitzvah. And you took me to the store, and you bought my first pair of tefillin for me. He said, I still put it on from time to time, and I remember your love and kindness that you showed me. He said, of course, the tefillin is on the left hand. When I was in the tattoo parlor with all my friends, the guys and the girls, and we were all putting on tattoos, I said, put them all over my body, but not on my left arm. That's where I put the tefillin on that my rabbi gave me. And I've never put a tattoo on my left arm. That is gratitude. Remembering not only the kindness, but remembering every single blessing in our lives, including those that came from people who indirectly benefited us, and even being grateful for our inanimate blessings and objects in our lives. Have a wonderful day.